They said miracles don't happen twice. But this time, Heartland proves them all wrong. Just when Amy had started to accept life without Ty, a twist in fate shakes everything. A mysterious letter, a familiar shadow, a stormy night that leads to a moment no one ever expected. Season 19 opens not with calm, but with chaos, a return that defies time, and a reunion that melts even the coldest hearts. Ty Borden was gone. Or, so we believed. But what if he never truly left? The episode begins in a way that feels oddly unsettling. Heartland is quiet. Too quiet. The birds still sing, the horses still roam, and the wind still rustles through the trees. But there's something missing in the air. Amy stands near the paddock, watching the horses with tired eyes. It's been years since Ty passed, and though time has moved on, her heart hasn't. She wears a brave face for Lindy, who now asks fewer questions about her father. But behind her strength is a storm she hides from the world, a storm of grief that never really settled. Lou is back from New York, and while she brings energy and a touch of her usual chaos, she knows something's off with Amy. Jack tries to lift everyone's spirit with a Sunday breakfast tradition, but even his warm coffee and cowboy wisdom can't chase away the heaviness. Amy barely touches her food. Her thoughts drift elsewhere, always to the past. Later, while cleaning out the barn, Amy stumbles upon a dusty old box of Ty's things. She opens it slowly, her hands trembling. Inside are worn-out gloves, a cracked stethoscope, and a photo of the two of them, laughing, eyes full of love and promise. Just seeing it brings tears to her eyes. She thought she had moved on, but this moment shatters the illusion. She sits down on a bale of hay, clutching the picture to her chest, whispering, "I miss you." Meanwhile, a mysterious stranger is seen walking the long road toward Heartland Ranch. We don't see his face, only his boots and the dust rising with each step. He's limping slightly, as if every step is a battle. The camera doesn't reveal who he is, but there's something familiar in his posture, something haunting in the way he looks at the ranch from afar. As he approaches the front gate, he stops and turns away. Back at the house, Georgie returns after months on the road. She notices the mood right away, how Amy keeps glancing at the window like she's expecting someone. Georgie hugs her tightly, trying to remind her that family is still here, still real. But Amy's gaze stays fixed outside, drawn to the silence that seems heavier than usual. Night falls. A storm brews in the distance. Thunder rumbles softly as Amy tucks Lindy into bed. The little girl asks, "Mommy, do you think Daddy sees us from the sky?" Amy swallows hard, forcing a smile. "I believe he's always watching," she says, but her voice cracks. Outside, lightning splits the sky. Amy can't sleep. She walks out to the porch, wrapping herself in a blanket. The wind picks up, the rain begins to fall, and in the flash of lightning, she sees it. A figure standing near the barn, soaked, still, and silent. Her heart stops. She rushes down the steps, barefoot in the mud, unsure if it's real or just her imagination playing cruel tricks. The figure doesn't move. As she gets closer, her breath catches in her throat. "Ty," she whispers. The man steps forward into the light. His eyes, tired but familiar, a beard, scars, but it's him, Ty Borden, alive. Amy stumbles back in shock, her hands over her mouth, tears instantly falling. He looks at her, broken but breathing. "I tried to come back," he says, his voice shaking. "I never stopped trying." And just like that, everything changes. But this miracle doesn't come without questions or consequences. Amy stands frozen, drenched from the storm, her eyes wide as Ty reaches out a trembling hand. It's a moment pulled straight from a dream, or maybe a nightmare. She blinks, hoping it's not a cruel hallucination. But he's there, real, breathing, alive. The rain falls harder, washing over the mud and memories. Ty stares at her, waiting, hoping, afraid. Amy can't move. Her mind races. How is this possible? He was gone. She buried him. There was a funeral. There were tears, grief, years of trying to heal. And now, he's standing in front of her, like time folded in on itself. "Where have you been?" Her voice breaks. The question comes out more like a sob. Ty looks down, ashamed. It's a long story, one I never wanted to be real. Before either of them can say more, Jack bursts out the front door, shotgun in hand, protective as ever. He stops dead when he sees who's standing with Amy. The look on his face shifts from shock to disbelief to silent fury. "Is this some kind of joke?" he growls. "No joke," Ty whispers. "It's me." The tension in the air is heavier than the storm clouds. Lou rushes outside, followed by Georgie, Tim, and even Katie. One by one, they freeze, stunned into silence. Lindy wakes up and toddles onto the porch, her little eyes scanning the scene until they fall on the man standing beside her mother. "Daddy," she says softly. Ty drops to his knees, tears pouring freely. "Lindy." Amy scoops her daughter into her arms protectively, stepping back. She still doesn't know what to believe. "You were gone for so long. Why now?" Ty's hands shake as he reaches into his coat and pulls out a folded piece of paper, soaked but intact. "I wanted to come home. I tried. But someone didn't want me to." They all gather around the kitchen table, dripping wet and silent. Ty's presence feels like a ghost in the room. Too surreal to trust, too real to deny. He begins to explain. Not everything, just enough to make their heads spin. Years ago, Ty had been caught in something dark. A clinic in the mountains had requested his help with wildlife treatment. But it was a trap. He was attacked, drugged, and taken across the border. A group claiming to be animal conservationists had other motives. They kept him isolated, far from communication. Days turned to weeks, then months. Injuries kept him weak. The outside world believed he was dead, and the people around him made sure it stayed that way. "Why would someone do that to you?" Amy asks, still not letting her guard down. "I don't know everything," Ty replies. "But I think it had something to do with one of my patients. A wolf. Rare. Valuable. I knew too much." Tim, never one to trust easily, narrows his eyes. "So you just walk back into our lives like nothing happened?" "No," Ty says firmly. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want the truth to come out. I want my family to know I never left by choice." Lindy sits on his lap now, curious and comforted by the sense of familiarity. She doesn't fully understand what's happening, but her small arms wrapped around Ty's neck speak volumes. Amy watches them, torn between heartbreak and hope. A part of her wants to hold him, to scream, to cry, to demand every detail. Another part wants to shut the door, protect her heart, keep the wounds from reopening. Georgie finally speaks. "We should test him. DNA, blood work, anything. We need to be sure." No one argues, not even Ty. The next morning, the sun rises over a ranch that feels upside down. The storm is gone, but its echoes remain. Jack rides out early to clear his head. Lou makes calls to verify Ty's story. Amy stays near Lindy, watching her sleep with Ty curled up on the couch, as if he's afraid to close his eyes and wake up somewhere else. At the clinic, Scott does the tests quietly. He believes it's Ty, he feels it, but science will confirm what hearts can't. Ty spends the day walking around the ranch slowly. Every tree, every fence, every stable feels like a time capsule. He pauses by Spartan's paddock. The horse approaches cautiously, sniffing the air. And then, as if recognizing a long-lost friend, Spartan nudges Ty's hand. That moment breaks Amy. She walks out from the house, her eyes red but determined. "You can't just come back and expect things to go back to how they were." "I know," Ty replies. "I don't want things to go back. I just want to start again. If you'll let me." Amy hesitates. "I don't know if I can." He nods. "Then I'll wait. For as long as it takes." The rest of the day passes in a blur of cautious conversation, suspicious glances, and raw emotions. Tim tries to dig deeper, questioning Ty about things only the real Ty would know. Lou juggles between lawyer mode and sister mode, trying to keep things grounded. Georgie silently watches, still unsure. As night falls again, Amy finds herself walking to the barn. Ty is there, repairing a broken latch on one of the stalls. It's such a familiar sight that it almost feels normal. "I used to dream of this," she says quietly. "Of you just coming back." "I dreamed of it too," he replies without looking up. "Every night. She steps closer, close enough to hear his breath. "What kept you going?" "You," he says simply. "And Lindy, your faces, your love." Tears roll down Amy's cheeks. She wants to believe him. She wants to trust that this isn't a lie, a trick, a mistake, but her heart is tired, and Ty sees it. "I'll never ask you to forget the pain," he says gently, "but I'll fight every day to bring back the peace." And in that moment, Amy doesn't respond. She just stands there, listening to the sound of rain beginning again on the roof, and wonders if maybe, just maybe, miracles don't always come with joy. Sometimes they come with confusion, healing, and time. The next morning, the results arrive. Scott enters early, his expression unreadable as the ranch family gathers in the kitchen, the same space that bore witness to shock days ago, now filled with tense anticipation. He pauses, scanning every face, then simply states, "It's him. Biologically, emotionally, spiritually, it's Ty." Relief flows through the room. Amy exhales, collapsing into a chair. Jack closes his eyes, letting out a slow breath. Lou zeroes in on logistics, firing off questions about what comes next. Tim remains stoic, arms crossed, suspicion still lingering. Georgie, voice soft, whispers, "I knew it," though uncertainty still shadows her tone. Ty watches them all, not celebrating yet, realizing that while DNA confirms identity, it can't guarantee trust, healing, or forgiveness. Later, Amy and Ty walk down the familiar gravel trail alone. The air is quiet, filled only by the crunch underfoot. Amy's voice trembles. "You were really gone. Not just missing, you were taken." Ty halts, gaze steady. "Every day I thought of you, of home. I tried to escape. They broke my ribs, my spirit, but they never took my love for you." Amy looks downward, voice tight. "We thought you were dead. I grieved. I went numb, then I raised Lindy. She needed me. I had to be strong." "And you were," Ty replies softly. "I'm so proud of you." They pause near the old treehouse. Inside its weathered boards, locked in the crevices, are Lindy's drawings. One depicts their family, with a faceless tall figure for her father. Ty's voice cracks. "She remembered me?" Amy gently touches the paper. "I told her stories. She believed until her bedtime questions stopped." Inside the house, Lou is coordinating the aftermath. Ty's legal status, finances, medical reports, all are tangled. Authorities must be notified, and identification needs replacing. Rumors of Ty's return are spreading. Drones were seen overhead, reporters lurk. "We need to protect this family," Lou insists. But Amy's mind stays tethered to Ty, her husband, fractured and rebuilding, trying to reintegrate into a world that has moved on without him. She watches him, torn between yearning and fear. That night, tension escalates. Ty walks the paddocks under a moonlit sky, ensuring the animals are safe. Out of the corner of his eye, he catches movement in the shadows near the tree line. A man steps forward near a parked truck, unshaven, with a hint of a foreign accent lurking on his tongue and worry in his eyes. "You weren't supposed to come back," he says. Ty's gut tightens. Instinctively, he asks, "Who are you?" The man snarls, "You should have stayed dead." Without another word, he bolts into the woods. Ty chases but loses him to the darkness. He jogs back to the house, heart pounding, and bursts through the door. Amy meets him in the hallway. Breathing hard, he says in a low voice, "They know I'm here." The threat is no longer a whisper. It's dangerously close. Even amid the safety of daylight, tension lingers. Dawn barely breaks before Jack and Tim ride out to check fences and perimeter lines. Jack's usually calm demeanor is tight. Every rustle in the trees makes him reach for his radio. Back at the ranch house, Lou and Georgie establish a rotating watch schedule. Someone needs to stay alert around the clock. Amy and Ty sit at the kitchen table, sipping coffee in silence. The morning sun glints off Ty's glassed eyes, but something inside him remains shadowed. Ty explains everything he remembers: the name of their captors, the clinic's false paperwork, patrol patterns, snippets he's gleaned during his captivity. He doesn't know if they're still searching for him or how deep the conspiracy runs. "They had resources," he says quietly. "Men with radios, weapons, and who knows what else." Amy places her hand on his arm, the action brimming with worry and relief. We'll get through this, she whispers. During breakfast, Lindy colors quietly, sensing the tension. She draws a small heart with Daddy written underneath, pressing it into Ty's hand. He's moved, but guilt flashes across his face. His absence still weighs heavy. Amy gently takes the paper, pressing it to her chest. That morning, Scott delivers more unsettling news. Ty doesn't just need identification and legal aid. He'll need medical clearance from specialists. Broken bones, infections are all possible results of whatever abuse he endured. Amy promises to help arrange it, but inside, she flinches at the thought of what her husband might be hiding under bandages and scars. By afternoon, reporters have gathered at the edge of the ranch access road. A single cameraman peers through binoculars. Lou speaks calmly to a news crew liaison. We're managing a personal family matter. No comments, but she glances over at Amy and Ty, knowledge and guilt locked in her eyes. The media's presence is a burden, a sign that the outside world's curiosity could bring danger. As evening nears, Ty needs air. He heads to the barn where Spartan and the other horses graze. The horses inch forward at the smell of his coat. He kneels, letting Spartan nuzzle his hand. Then he hears the crunch of gravel. He stands, tense, looking into the twilight. Tim emerges quietly. Sharing a glance, they nod as if acknowledging an unspoken truth. Ty is home, but not safe yet. Later, Amy and Ty meet by the fence alone. The sky glows with sunset's fire, shadows long. Amy's face is resolute. This was our home, our peaceful place, she says softly. Now it's a beacon. A target. Ty clasps her hand. We'll fix it. Together. She looks at him, hope and despair fighting for dominance in her eyes. Night falls heavier today. Winds pick up, rattling shutters. Inside, Lindy sleeps fitfully, whispering Daddy in her dreams. Outside, shadows appear near the barn again. Jack and Tim confront a lone man checking the fence. Not the same from the woods, but clearly scouting. The three men argue quietly. The man flees into the black. Jack curses. Tim brushes Ty's shoulder when he joins them. Stay away from her, he says softly. Downstairs, Amy wakes to a light tapping at the window. A camera? Footsteps on the gravel. She wakes Ty. They share a tense look. They're here, she whispers. The episode closes on their faces. Determined, scared, and unshaken. The calm of Heartland has shattered, and the battle for Ty's life, their family's safety, and their future has begun. What comes next will determine everything. A hush falls over Heartland as dawn breaks, but it's a fragile silence, like glass poised to crack. The morning's tasks begin under scrutiny and anxiety. Tim sets up spotlights at the paddock gates. Georgie and Lou work by laptop, coordinating surveillance cams. Jack patrols with a rifle slung over his shoulder, scanning the horizon. Amy hovers close to Ty, holding a mug of lukewarm coffee she barely tastes. Both are exhausted but determined, knowing each moment of vigilance is necessary for their fragile peace. After breakfast, Ty heads out to check the horses himself. In the early mist, he pauses at Spartan's stall, noticing hoofprints that don't match any of the ranch's horses. His chest tightens. Someone was here. He radios Jack, who comes running. They investigate together, finding clear signs of someone lingering. Broken twine near the gate, faint footprints. Jack's jaw clenches. We're not alone, he mutters. Inside, Amy absorbs the news with horror. She watches Ty return, shaken, the same horsehair coat clinging to his shoulders. They exchange a look weighted with alarm and sorrow. This isn't the homecoming they imagined. Yet amid the dread, determination sparks. They must stand stronger together, for Lindy, for their life. Lou convenes a mini strategy session. They establish safe zones in the house and barn. Every door must lock. Every room must have a phone or radio. Georgie suggests moving cameras closer and deepening alliances with nearby neighbors. Neighbors who owe Heartland favor. Scott offers to install alarm sensors. Tim tests walkie-talkies, notching each to an agreed channel. In the late morning sun, Amy takes Lindy to the smaller paddock, hoping to distract her with brushing and treats. But Lindy's small voice quivers. I want Daddy safe, she whispers. Amy kneels beside her. He is safe, sweetie. We're all working hard for that. She watches Ty through the fence, leaning against the barn, lost in thought. She longs to reassure him, to lean on him, but everything between them feels fragile. Trust, safety, love. All in need of rebuilding. That afternoon, Ty asks Amy to join him in the old treehouse that once held childhood memories and shadows of their past. Inside, dust motes float in the afternoon light. Ty produces a small, battered wooden box. Inside are keepsakes, a dried wildflower Amy once pressed in a notebook, a small toy horse Lindy lost, and a photo of Amy and Ty smiling at a ranch dance years ago. He opens the box, sliding it across the floorboards. "I kept these," he says, voice shaking. "They were my anchors." Amy stares at the items, symbols of love, hope, and she can't help but feel her defenses soften. She picks up the dried flower. "We hold on," she whispers. Ty nods. "Exactly." Outside, rumblings of change echo. Jack and Tim spot a black SUV idling near the road's entrance, far enough to remain unseen. They alert the others, and Lou calls the local authorities. Yet the SUV disappears as law enforcement rounds the corner. A cat-and-mouse game has begun, and Heartland is the ground zero. As dusk settles, rain begins to drum again, the rhythm on the rooftop pounding like a warning. Inside, Amy prepares dinner with Tim's help. Ty helps Lindy with school lessons at the kitchen table. The soft domestic scene belies the turmoil beneath, the unspoken fears etched into everyone's eyes. They eat quietly, brokenly, a family under siege, but together. Later, after Lindy sleeps fitfully, Amy finds Ty reading the makeshift strategy map in the kitchen. She sits across from him. The coffee next to her has gone cold. "They're afraid of you," she says low. "We saw the SUV. I think they want something from you." Ty studies her. "They want control," he replies. "Maybe information, maybe retribution, but they'll find nothing but truth and a hurted heart." Amy shakes her head. "Why come back?" he asks. "Because I belong here," she whispers. Thunder rattles the windows again, and Amy realizes there's more at stake than simple safety. They need closure, justice, and healing. This night won't end without decisions. She stands gathering blueprints, radios, and flashlights. They will fight, but they will fight together. The scene closes with a slow pan across Heartland Ranch. The barn, horse silhouettes etched against the dark sky, lights glowing inside the farmhouse. The storm's gusts swirl around fences and gates. Inside, Amy and Ty huddle over the strategy map, foreheads touching. This is no longer just a homecoming, it's a stand against forces trying to rip them apart. And they know there's no going back, only forward. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm building inside their hearts. As the winds howled through the valley and lightning danced over the hills, Heartland stood as a flickering candle in the dark, brave but vulnerable. Inside the house, every room was alive with quiet movement. Jack polished his rifle for the third time that day. Lou double-checked the cameras. Georgie and Katie whispered in the hallway, trying to calm each other down. Amy sat near the fireplace, hugging her knees to her chest. Ty stood by the window, eyes scanning the blackness. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew something was about to happen, and they had to be ready. That night, around midnight, Amy heard it. A single, sharp noise outside, too heavy to be the wind. She stood up quickly, heart racing. Ty was already at the door with a flashlight. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. Amy nodded, grabbing the walkie-talkie. Jack and Tim were already moving. Lou checked the feed from the cameras. And there it was, a dark figure near the barn. Ty rushed outside, boots sinking into the wet ground. The wind pushed against him like a warning. He reached the barn just as the shadow moved. "Stop!" he yelled, but the figure disappeared into the dark. Jack arrived behind him, gun in hand. Together, they searched. The horses were restless. Spartan neighed loudly, stomping his feet. Ty placed a calming hand on his neck. "It's okay, boy," he whispered, but his own heart was thudding in fear. They found a broken latch on the back gate. Someone had tried to get in. Again. By morning, the mood in the house was worse. Tired eyes, heavy silences. Amy looked at Lindy, sleeping on the couch with her favorite toy horse. "She deserves peace," Amy said. Ty sat beside her. "So do you." But neither of them felt peaceful. They felt like they were being hunted. Lou contacted the police again. They promised to send someone, but the roads were too muddy from the storm. It would take hours, and that's when Amy had enough. "We can't wait anymore," she said to everyone. "We need to know who's behind this. We need answers." Georgie stepped forward. Then let's give them what they want, a trap. They came up with a plan. They would pretend to leave Heartland for a day. Ty, Amy, Lou, and the others would drive away in the truck with loud goodbyes and packed bags, but Jack and Tim would stay hidden. The house would be rigged with cameras and alarms. If someone came back this time, they would be caught. The plan began that afternoon. Amy kissed Lindy's forehead. "Be brave, baby. We'll be home soon." Lindy nodded, her small hands clutching Spartan's picture. The truck drove off down the road. The house stood quiet. Hours passed. Jack sat in the barn with binoculars. Tim waited behind the hay bales. The wind had died down, but the tension was thick. Then, just as the sun began to dip, they saw him. A man dressed in black, walking carefully through the back field. He thought the ranch was empty. He moved quickly, heading for the barn. Tim sent the signal. The trap was set. Jack moved fast, cutting off his path. Tim circled around. The man turned, but Ty appeared from the shadows. "It's over," Ty said firmly. The man froze. For a second, no one moved. Then he ran. But this time, they were ready. Tim tackled him to the ground. Jack tied his hands. Ty pulled off the man's mask. It wasn't someone they knew, not directly. But the man had a tattoo, an old mark from a prison gang Ty remembered. This wasn't random. This was personal. The man refused to talk. But Amy, watching from the truck, noticed something. The man had a scar, a burn mark near his neck. She remembered Ty mentioning a fire at a treatment center years ago. A man had threatened Ty after a disagreement about medical ethics. Could it be him? That night, the police finally arrived. The man was taken away, but the fear lingered. Who had sent him? Why now? What else did he know? Amy stood with Ty under the stars, their hands cold but held tightly together. "I thought coming home would bring us peace," she whispered. Ty looked at her, eyes full of pain and love. "Sometimes coming home means facing what chased you away." They didn't speak for a while. The wind had quieted. But in their silence, there was strength. They had survived another night. Together. Heartland had been shaken, but not broken. And in the distance, in the darkest part of the woods, another shadow watched. Not caught. Not done. The real storm was still coming. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm building inside their hearts. As the winds howled through the valley and lightning danced over the hills, Heartland stood as a flickering candle in the dark, brave but vulnerable. Inside the house, every room was alive with quiet movement. Jack polished his rifle for the third time that day. Lou double-checked the cameras. Georgie and Katie whispered in the hallway, trying to calm each other down. Amy sat near the fireplace, hugging her knees to her chest. Ty stood by the window, eyes scanning the blackness. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew. Something was about to happen, and they had to be ready. That night, Heartland was quiet again. Too quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't bring peace, but questions. The police had Elias in custody. They were investigating his links to Marco and the threats against the ranch. But would it be enough? Amy stood in the barn, brushing Spartan's coat. "You've seen storms come and go," she whispered to the horse. This one was harder than most. Ty entered the barn holding a box. Inside were letters, old ones, from the early days of their relationship. He handed one to Amy. "Read this." She opened it. It was a note from Ty, written during his time away in Mongolia. It said, "No matter how far I go, my heart always rides home to you. You are my peace, my wild, my purpose." Tears welled up in Amy's eyes. "I thought we lost this." Ty smiled softly. "We didn't. We just had to fight for it again." Outside, the stars appeared. Lindy ran to her mother with a drawing. "It's you and Daddy and Spartan," she said proudly. Amy looked at the picture. It was simple. 3 figures under a big yellow sun. But it meant everything. In the darkest chapter of their lives, they had found the light again. But the shadows hadn't vanished. They were simply watching. Waiting. Because some storms don't just pass. They return. It had been 3 weeks since Elias Drexler was taken into custody. Life at Heartland slowly returned to normal. Or at least, what felt like normal. Horses were back in their routines. Guests returned to the ranch. Amy was giving riding lessons again, and Ty resumed his work at the local animal clinic. On the outside, everything looked peaceful, but deep inside, a quiet unease remained. Amy often found herself glancing over her shoulder. At night, she double-checked the doors and windows. Ty did the same. Lindy had stopped having nightmares, but Amy hadn't. Some shadows don't vanish easily. They leave behind a feeling, a reminder that danger had touched your life and could return without warning. One afternoon, as Amy was walking through the pasture, she received a phone call from Lou. Her voice was urgent. "You need to come to the house. Now!" Amy rushed home, her heart racing. Inside, Lou was standing in front of her laptop. Her hands trembled as she pressed play on a video. It had been sent to her personal email address, with no subject, no sender name, just a video file. Amy leaned in to watch. The screen was dark at first. Then a voice spoke, cold and slow. "Did you think this was over?" A light flickered on in the video, revealing a barn. Not Heartland's barn, but one that looked strangely familiar. A man stepped into view. It wasn't Elias, it was someone else. Tall, heavy-set, with a sharp scar running down his cheek. "My name is Victor Lang," the man said. "Elias may be behind bars, but I'm still here. And I know everything about your family, about your horses, about your daughter." Amy gasped. Her knees nearly gave out. Lou grabbed her arm to steady her. "The next time you hold a fundraiser," Victor continued in the video, "make sure your guests leave alive." The video ended. Ty arrived moments later. Lou showed him the clip. His jaw clenched. "He's continuing Elias's work. This was never about just one man. It's a network." Jack stormed into the room. "Enough is enough," he said firmly. "We need to go to the police. Again." But this time, the police were slower to respond. Elias hadn't confessed to anything, and Victor Lang was not in any database. Without more evidence, they couldn't act. Amy felt like she was drowning again. What if they're watching us right now? Jack locked the ranch down tighter. Cameras were checked every few hours. The family never left the house alone. Georgie offered to stay at Heartland to help. Peter took Lindy to stay with his parents for a few days, just to be safe. Amy hated being apart from her daughter, but she knew it was the right thing to do. In the silence that followed, Amy and Ty grew even closer. They talked late into the night, remembering how far they'd come together. They weren't just a couple anymore. They were survivors, warriors. Two people who had faced death more than once and still chose love every time. But then, another surprise arrived. This time, in the mail. A small envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photograph. A picture of Amy, Ty, and Lindy, taken 2 months ago at the town fair. Smiling, happy, carefree. Someone had taken it without them knowing. Amy's hands shook as she held the picture. "They've been watching us longer than we thought." Jack took the photo and examined it closely. "That barn in the background, that's not the fairgrounds. That's old Miller's barn." Lou nodded. "It's abandoned. No one's used it in years." Ty stood up. "Then that's where we start." Against the advice of police, Ty and Jack decided to investigate. They didn't want to risk waiting any longer. Amy insisted on coming too. "This is our life. I won't hide anymore." The three of them drove to the old Miller property. It was isolated, miles from town, surrounded by overgrown grass and rusted fences. The barn stood like a skeleton of the past, quiet, still, and filled with secrets. They entered cautiously. Dust filled the air. A broken saddle lay on the ground. Empty crates stacked along the walls. And then, in one corner, they found it. A room built with fresh wood. Inside were photos, maps, and notes pinned to the wall. Pictures of Heartland, of the family, names, dates, patterns of movements. Every step they'd taken over the past 3 months had been tracked. Amy's breath caught in her throat. They were planning something. Suddenly, Jack pointed to a map. "This date? Next weekend. What's happening then?" Amy answered, "That's the day of the annual fall festival in town. Heartland is sponsoring it." Ty looked closer. The words written next to the date were chilling. Final strike. They returned home and immediately handed everything to the police. This time, it was enough. A manhunt was launched. Victor Lang's photo was taken from security footage and spread across nearby provinces. The fall festival was postponed. Police guarded the ranch around the clock, but Victor never appeared. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. A week passed, then 2. Eventually, the tension at Heartland began to ease. Police believed Victor had fled the country, but Amy wasn't so sure. Sometimes, she saw movement in the trees and heard whispers in the wind. She knew how these men operated. They didn't strike when you expected. They waited. They watched. But one thing was different now. This time Amy wasn't afraid, because she wasn't alone. She had Ty by her side, she had her family, and she had something stronger than fear. Hope. Because no matter how dark the past may be, love was always stronger, and Heartland was still standing. The leaves had started to fall at Heartland, covering the ground in golden orange. The air smelled of firewood and fresh hay. Life was slowly moving forward again. The memories of Elias Drexler and Victor Lang still lingered, but they were no longer chains around the family's hearts. Instead, they had become reminders of how precious every moment truly was. Amy stood at the edge of the pasture, watching Lindy ride with Jack. Her laughter echoed across the open space like a soft melody. It had been weeks since the last threat, and the police had found no trace of Victor Lang. But Amy had made peace with that. She wasn't going to let fear control her anymore, not after everything they had survived. Inside the house, Ty was repairing an old photo frame. It was the same frame that used to hold a picture of him and Amy when they were just kids, long before the world tested their love. He replaced the old photo with a new one, of them with Lindy, smiling in front of the barn just days ago. A fresh memory, filled with strength and second chances. That evening, the family gathered around the dinner table. Jack carved the roast, Lou poured the cider, and even Georgie was home for a visit. Katie cracked jokes while Peter laughed so hard he nearly choked. The house was filled with warmth. For the first time in a long time, Heartland felt untouched by shadows. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Amy sat outside under the stars. Ty joined her, wrapping a blanket around them both. The night was cool, but the warmth between them was enough. "I never thought we'd get here," Amy whispered. Ty looked up at the sky. "You mean peace?" "No," Amy said, resting her head on his shoulder. "I mean happiness. Real happiness." He smiled. "We earned it?" She turned to look at him. "What if Victor comes back?" Ty didn't answer right away. Instead, he took her hand gently. "Then we face him. Together. Like we always do." Amy looked into his eyes and saw the man who had stood by her in every storm, through every loss, every danger, every heartbreak. He wasn't just her husband, he was her anchor, her shield, her forever. The next morning brought a surprise. A letter arrived at Heartland. No threats this time. Just a handwritten note addressed to Amy and Ty. It was from a woman named Clara Lang, Victor's sister. The letter read, "I want to apologize for what my brother did. He wasn't always that man. Something changed in him after he lost everything. But I want you to know. I've told the authorities everything. Where he hid, what he planned. I'm helping them track him down. Because no family should live in fear. And because you deserve peace." Amy folded the letter slowly. For the first time, she truly felt like a chapter had closed. She gave the note to Jack and watched his expression soften. "You see," he said, "even from the worst people, something good can still come." Life at Heartland went on. Amy returned to training troubled horses. Ty expanded his clinic. Lou focused on her mayoral duties while spending more time with Katie. Jack repaired the fences himself again, stubborn as ever. The ranch had seen storms, but the foundations held strong, because they were built on something deeper than wood and nails. They were built on love. Weeks turned into months. Winter approached. Snow kissed the rooftops, and Christmas lights lit up the barn. One evening, as the family gathered again for the holidays, a sense of peace filled the room, not because the threats were gone completely, but because they had learned to live fully despite them. Lindy climbed onto her mother's lap and asked, "Mama, are the bad people gone now?" Amy looked at her daughter, her heart full. "They're far away now," she replied. "And we're safe. Because we're strong. Because we have each other." Ty nodded, holding them both close. "And because love always wins." That night, Amy dreamed of Heartland covered in stars. horses running free, laughter echoing through the hills, and somewhere deep in her soul, she knew it wasn't just a dream. It was the life they had fought for, the life they had chosen, the life they had reclaimed. Heartland was more than a ranch. It was a story of love rising again and again from the ashes of pain, and it would continue, one sunrise at a time. Snow melted slowly on the hills of Heartland as spring approached. The ranch, once covered in white silence, now woke up with sounds of new life, birds singing, horses neighing, and the soft rustle of budding leaves. It was a new season, and with it came new hope. Amy walked along the fence line, her boots leaving faint prints in the damp earth. Her eyes scanned the horizon, not out of fear, but out of habit. She knew the danger had passed. Victor Lang was finally captured weeks ago, thanks to his sister's confession. The trial was ongoing, but Amy no longer felt hunted. Justice was finally being served, and the past no longer held her hostage. But peace doesn't mean life stands still. There were still long days, hard decisions, and emotional moments. Lindy had begun asking deeper questions about Ty's disappearance and return. She was growing fast, and with that growth came curiosity. Amy did her best to answer honestly, keeping the truth gentle but never hiding it. Heartland had always been about facing life head-on. Ty was back at the clinic full-time now. He had begun mentoring young vets from nearby colleges. Many came to Heartland for internships, and Ty welcomed them with patience and stories. One young woman, Sarah, reminded him of a younger Amy, full of fire and instinct. Watching her reminded him that life continues in cycles, and each generation leaves behind lessons in hoofprints and heartbeats. One afternoon, while repairing the paddock gate, Jack paused and looked around. "You ever think about how far we've come?" he asked Tim, who stood beside him. Tim nodded. "We've lost people. We've nearly lost ourselves. But somehow, this place, this family, pulls us back together." Jack smiled. "That's because it's built on love. Even when we don't say it out loud, it holds us up." Heartland was no longer just a home. It had become a symbol for second chances, for healing, for strength. The townspeople saw it as a beacon. Local schools visited with their students. Lost teens found work and peace there. Even horses no one believed in found a new purpose. Amy often said, "If a soul is willing, Heartland will always find a way to heal it." Meanwhile, Lou's mayoral duties grew heavier, but she learned to balance them better. Peter stayed longer on his visits, and Katie opened up more with each passing day. Georgie returned from her show-jumping tour with news. She was thinking of settling down near Heartland permanently. The ranch was growing, not just in land, but in love. One warm evening, Amy and Ty stood near the old tree where they had once carved their initials. The carving had faded, but it was still there, faint but strong, like their journey. "Do you ever wish things had gone differently?" Amy asked softly. Ty shook his head. Because even the pain brought us here. And here is where we belong." Amy took his hand. "I used to think love meant things always felt easy, but now I know. Real love is when you fight for each other, even when things are hard." "And we did," Ty said. "We still do." In the distance, Lindy ran after a foal, her laughter blending with the wind. Jack watched from the porch, guitar in hand, playing a gentle tune. Tim grilled steaks nearby, while Lou and Katie prepared a picnic by the barn. Heartland had been tested, torn, threatened, but in the end, it endured. Because some places, like some loves, are meant to last forever. And as the sun dipped below the hills, casting long golden shadows across the fields, Amy looked out and whispered, "This is only the beginning." Weeks passed, and Heartland settled into a peaceful rhythm. The air felt lighter. The weight of past secrets had lifted. Horses ran freely, children laughed under open skies, and the family gathered around the dinner table more often. Life, for the first time in a long while, felt whole. But peace never means the end of stories. It just means a pause before the next chapter. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the ranch in hues of gold and fire, Amy stood at the barn, brushing a mare that had just arrived. The horse, named Whisper, was skittish, as if she had seen too much of the world. Her eyes darted, ears twitched, and every touch made her flinch. Amy worked with quiet patience, speaking in soft tones, using movements that told the horse, "You're safe now." Ty walked over and leaned against the stall, watching them. "She's different," he said. Amy nodded. "She reminds me of me, right after we lost Marion. Or maybe after we lost you?" Ty placed a hand on her shoulder. "She'll trust you. They always do." In that moment, Amy felt something stir in her. It wasn't fear. It wasn't sadness. It was a question, one that had been quietly forming in her heart. What came next? Her work with horses had always been about healing. But now, something deeper pulled at her. A desire to share what she'd learned, to teach others the way Heartland had taught her. She considered opening a school for troubled youth and young horse trainers. Maybe even write a book. The ranch had stories, endless ones, and the world needed hope. Meanwhile, Jack had taken to writing in an old leather notebook. He said it was just to pass the time, but Lou discovered he was writing down the entire family history, from the time Grandpa started Heartland, to Marion's legacy, to Amy's rise, and even Ty's return. When asked why, he smiled and said, "One day, someone will want to know how we made it through everything, and they'll find the answers here." But the biggest change was still hidden. Late one night, while the house slept and the stars shimmered above, Amy sat quietly on the porch swing. She had felt tired for days, a different kind of tired. At first, she thought it was just the season, or maybe stress, but something told her otherwise. Something inside. She took a deep breath and gently placed a hand on her stomach. Could it be? The next morning, she quietly drove into town and visited the doctor. She didn't tell anyone, not even Ty. The waiting room felt longer than usual. She watched children play outside the window, mothers laughing, life moving gently. When the doctor walked in, her eyes held a knowing warmth. She smiled. "Amy, congratulations." Amy's heart skipped a beat. Pregnant. She couldn't speak for a moment. The news washed over her like the sunrise, soft, warm, and full of promise. Later that evening, she walked with Ty by the river, the same one where they had first talked about their dreams years ago. She stopped under a tree and looked up at him. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice trembling with joy. Ty tilted his head, concern flickering in his eyes. "What is it?" She reached for his hand, placed it gently on her belly, and whispered, "We're going to have another baby." For a moment, time froze. The wind quieted, the birds hushed, and even the river seemed to still. Ty's eyes filled with tears, and he pulled her into his arms. No words. Just the warmth of two hearts rediscovering their future together. Back at the ranch, Lindy danced around with a daisy crown on her head, and Jack sat quietly on the porch, as if he already knew. Because Heartland had always been more than just a ranch. It was a place where life bloomed again and again. And now, as the stars rose over the hills, a new heartbeat joined the rhythm of the land. A new chapter waited to be written. A new dawn was on its way. The news of Amy's pregnancy brought an air of joy unlike anything Heartland had felt in years. It wasn't just the happiness of expecting a child. It was the feeling of life moving forward with hope, of a family healing and growing stronger together. The ranch, always alive with nature's rhythm, now beat to a softer, warmer pulse. Every sunrise felt gentler. Every sunset seemed to linger a little longer. And in between, the days were filled with dreams. Ty became more attentive than ever. He would cook breakfast before Amy woke up, leave little notes around the house, and never let her lift anything heavier than a saddle blanket. Amy would laugh, sometimes roll her eyes, but deep down, she loved every bit of it. Ty, who had once been lost in his own darkness, now moved with purpose and light. One afternoon, as Amy stood by the corral watching Lindy ride her pony with Jack, she felt Ty's arms wrap gently around her. He rested his chin on her shoulder and said, "You're glowing?" She smiled. "I feel like I'm finally waking up after a long dream. A good one. But now, it's real." Lou had been the first family member Amy shared the news with. And in true Lou fashion, she went straight into planning mode. She started a checklist, organized a nursery plan, and even arranged a small family gathering to celebrate. "We should keep it simple," Amy had said. Lou raised an eyebrow. "Amy Fleming, this is Heartland. even simple is magical here. Lisa and Jack supported quietly, but with steady strength. Lisa brought old baby clothes she had saved, while Jack whittled a small wooden horse in the evenings. He said he wanted the new baby to have something made with his own hands, just like he had done for Amy and Lou when they were little. Even Caleb, Scott, and the town folks began to chime in. The entire community had witnessed the family's journey, their heartbreak, their perseverance, and now, their joy. A baby on the way wasn't just a blessing for the Flemings and the Bordens, it was a symbol of endurance and love reborn. Meanwhile, Amy began documenting her days. With Lou's encouragement, she started writing again, not just about horses, but about motherhood, grief, strength, and healing. Her words flowed effortlessly, almost as if the baby inside her was already speaking through her. She wrote late into the night, with Ty sometimes asleep beside her and sometimes reading over her shoulder. "That part," he once said, pointing to a sentence, "feels like something Marion would say." Amy smiled, her eyes misting. "I like to think she's still here, in the wind, in the horses, and now, in this baby too." As the months passed, Amy began to slow down. Her steps became more careful, her days more restful, but her spirit never dimmed. She would sit outside for hours, hands resting on her growing belly, listening to the ranch's gentle hum. Lindy was excited too. Every night she would talk to Amy's stomach, telling her baby sibling about her day. "You're going to love it here," she'd whisper. "I'll show you all the horses and the best hiding spots." One chilly morning, as winter crept in, Heartland was blanketed in soft snow. Ty lit a fire in the living room, and the family gathered around, sipping hot cocoa. Jack told stories of Amy and Lou as children, Lisa added tales of her travels, and even Katie joined in with a few wild stories from New York. Amy leaned against Ty, feeling warm and safe. "You know," Lou said, "we should capture this. All of it, maybe even make a short film. For the baby, for the future," Amy nodded. "That would be beautiful." But as with all stories at Heartland, peace is never without its trials. One day, as Amy returned from a routine checkup in town, she noticed a group of developers visiting a neighboring ranch. Word soon spread that an international company wanted to buy the land next door and turn it into a resort. They promised jobs, infrastructure, and progress. But Amy knew what it would really bring: noise, strangers, and a disruption to the delicate balance of Heartland's ecosystem. The family came together in urgent discussions. Jack was furious. "We've spent decades preserving this land, and now they want to destroy it for profit?" Lou was more strategic. "We need to organize the community, hold a town meeting, present the ecological data, the risks." Ty stood beside Amy, unwavering. "We can't let them take away what makes this place special." Amy, despite her pregnancy, stepped into a leadership role. With Lou's help, she began preparing a speech for the town hall. She wasn't just fighting for land. She was fighting for her family's legacy, for her child's future. The town hall was packed. Amy stood, heart pounding, belly heavy with life, and spoke with calm, passionate clarity. "Heartland isn't just a ranch," she said. "It's a living story, a healing place. If we lose it, we lose more than land. We lose who we are." By the time she finished, the room was silent. Then slowly, applause began to rise. The motion to block the resort passed. The community had chosen to protect its soul. Later that night, Ty and Amy sat under the stars again, fingers intertwined. "You were incredible," Ty whispered. Amy rested her head on his shoulder. "I just want our child to know that their home was worth fighting for." The baby kicked gently in her belly, as if agreeing. Heartland had weathered storms, heartaches, and long winters. But now, it stood stronger than ever, rooted in love, and ready to welcome a new life. A new dawn had begun. The days following Amy's pregnancy revelation passed like a whirlwind at Heartland. Emotions ripple through the ranch like wildfire. Some joyful, some uncertain, but all deeply human. Ty, overwhelmed by the thought of becoming a father again, walks the fields early every morning, letting the dew-covered grass brush against his boots as he gathers his thoughts. The sky stretches endlessly above him, a reminder of how far he's come and how much further he still must go to reclaim his... Jack blocked the door. "We go together." Within hours, the family mobilized, each using their skills. Scott arranged a rendezvous point. Tim used old rodeo routes to guess Ty's path. Georgie hacked satellite feeds to keep eyes on the forest. As night fell, Amy stood at the edge of a canyon trail, listening. Then she heard it. Twigs snapping, labored breathing. She turned. Ty collapsed into her arms, bloodied, exhausted, but alive. He handed her the folder. Life has a strange way of surprising us. Sometimes the people we lose find a way back. And sometimes the love we thought was gone returns. Wounded, yes, but stronger than before. Ty's return wasn't just a reunion, it was a test. A journey through doubt, fear, and broken memories. But through it all, one thing never changed. Love. Quiet, enduring love that held on even when everything else fell apart. Amy learned to live without him, to raise their daughter, to rebuild her life, to stand tall. And Ty, he fought to come home every single day, driven by the dream of one more sunrise at Heartland, one more hug from his little girl, one more chance to say, "I'm sorry." Their story reminds us that healing doesn't happen all at once. It comes in small moments, in the look of a horse that remembers, the laughter of a child, the silent forgiveness of a loved one who's still afraid but willing to try. As season 19 unfolds, we'll see more than just drama. We'll see family, forgiveness, courage, and the kind of love that doesn't disappear. It just waits for the right time to return. So, whether you're a longtime fan or just join this journey, know this. At Heartland, it's never just about horses. It's about the people who grow, who fall, who rise, and who always come home. Because home isn't just a place, it's a feeling, and sometimes a miracle. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next chapter in Heartland Season 19.